Greetings, everyone. I'd like to start off by greeting you all with the greeting words of peace. We say in Arabic, Assalamu alaikum, which means peace be upon you. And I don't want anyone to get me wrong. This is not a site for Muslims only. This website is not for one particular ideology, but it's for a particular group. Only because of the injustices superimposed upon this particular group, which we all should be able to agree, the black urban ethnic group here in America. Once again, thanks for joining me. Now, why are you here? Hopefully it's to understand what this movement is about. In a nutshell, it's about basically universal obedience as far as in order to implement what's needed in order for us to come together to create our own economic system. So in a nutshell, it's us coming together to create our own economic system. Because if you really look at it, we buy from everybody. And our condition, especially here in America, is grave. It's so grave that it's really literally like we just dead and we just exist. So like I said, we buy from everybody. We buy from Caucasians, from Jews, from Mexicans, from Chinese, Japanese. We buy from everybody, but don't nobody buy from us, not even us. And you know what's really sad about it, we don't even have anything to sell. And we need to change that, because if you really recognize what's going on, it's just getting worse. And more of us are being made ignorant and being detached from our common sense, that we fall deep and deep into the abyss of this garbage that's really here in America. Me, I'm Muslim. First of all, I'm black and I'm American. I was raised Christian for about 27 years, and I reverted to Islam so many years ago. I don't want to really reveal that because it might reveal my age. Okay. It's really not about me though. It's about us. You know, just because I'm Muslim, it doesn't mean that that I'm right in what I'm trying to present. But here's the thing: if I'm Muslim, and if you're Christian or Jew or atheist, whatever, if I'm wrong, then that's between me and the Creator, and you shouldn't be mad at me, and vice versa. We still had to come together to create something that's going to help our people sustain, survive. And we got to come together to create something for our babies. So, in a nutshell, this whole thing is about really fulfilling the scripture concerning Abraham, or Abrams, whose name was changed to Abraham. It's about fulfilling the scripture between him and God. In the Bible, if you're familiar with it, it talks about Abraham being the father of two great nations. So what does this have to do with beep? I'm not here to preach to anyone or try to convert anybody to Islam or whatever, you know. I'm here to try to convince us to come together to create or establish our own economic system. That's my sole purpose, God willing. But I need to use a little bit of comparative religion to try to help us understand or help us see the vision of BEAP, which stands for Black Economic Empowerment Plan. So I'm gonna go to Genesis in the Bible, you know, chapter 15, verse 13 through 14. It says, "And he said unto Abraham," or Abram, "know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that's not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward shall they come out with great substance." Now, we don't have to worry about that nation. You know, say we're going to be afflicted for 400 years, but at the same time, he says that, and also that nation whom they serve well, I judge. So you can look at the storms and the chaos in Congress and all that. So we don't have to worry about them. Now, this is really trying to get us to understand that, when you're reading scriptures or certain things like that, it's a twofold, sometimes some would say a threefold message. So we're going to just talk about sight, the right eye, the left eye, the spiritual sight, the physical sight, or knowledge. And I want to talk about Adam and Eve for a minute so I can put this thread together concerning us and why we're divided, and hopefully it can show us the commonality of what we need to see in order to come together. Because when we come to the table for creating a system for our people, we have to put aside our ideologies, because we need all of us in this, regardless of what you believe, we need all us to come together. So concerning Adam and Eve, when God told them, that they could eat of anything in the garden, he said you can eat of anything here, just don't eat of that fruit of that tree. Some say it was apple, whatever, it doesn't matter. They just was commanded not to eat of it. So as long as they obeyed that particular commandment, then they were good. But they disobeyed and they fell from that state that they were in. Now, what they did, they disobeyed. So the way of life that he chose for them was obedience. Obey that particular commandment. Don't eat it. They ate it, so they disobeyed. So hopefully we can agree that that particular way that he chose for them was obedience. Now I'd like to move on to the children of Israel, which God told Moses to give them the 10 commandments, which he said, if you obey these commandments, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you don't, but I hope we can agree that at the same time, that particular way of life that he chose for them was also obedience, obey the commandments. Moving along, we go to Jesus, and we don't have to get into the detail of who he was or whatever, just what he presented. He said he didn't come to change the law, and he fulfilled the law, and he said he don't give us 10 commandments, he said I give you but 2. And those 2 commandments was love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, love your neighbor like you love yourself. Now, but obey these 2. So at the same time, the way of life that was chosen, even through him, was obedience. And at the same time, when you really look deep into that, obeying those 2 commandments was still obeying the 10 commandments, because if you love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, you're not going to worship any other God, no graven image, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you love your neighbor like you love yourself, you're not going to you're not going to kill him, you're not going to steal from him, you're not going to commit adultery, et cetera, et cetera. It just goes, like that. Anyway, then we can move along to Muhammad and what he brought, and we don't have to go into great detail. We just talk about Islam, which means to submit your will to do God's will. And the word Muslim is a person who submits their will to do God's will. And at the same time, to submit your will to do God's will is not to obey what you want to do, but to obey what he wants you to do. So the way of life, if you take the thread and the needle and you sew through all of the religions and you compare all of them, the basic rule was obedience. That's it. Now we can go past that. I don't want to, delve deep into that. We have our own understanding, and hopefully we'll study to show ourselves approved. But in a nutshell, we can solve our own problems. Payne Good Pain Incorporated is a nonprofit organization that established the foundation BEAT, which stands for Black Economic Empowerment Plan. And our vision is to establish a complete economic system for Black urban society, and also to educate by exposing systematic oppression so that we can heal, cure, or empower ourselves. Now, in that vision, what we'd like to see and hope to come out of that is seeing this particular system of oppression destroyed. 1. 2, create our own economic system, which we just mentioned that. 3, revealing the tools of systematic oppression. And that's why I wrote the book, Oh Say Can You See Secrets, because that book is about systematic oppression. and it reveals the tools that were used against us. And one of the particular tools is the Willie Lynch letter. The whole letter is in the book, unedited. So it has a unique way of doing that, and you can go to the site, whatever, and order the book, check out more about what the book is about, but we won't get so much into the book. That's something something else. Okay, now when you look at systematic oppression, then you have to look at the present day. We have to look at Trump, what he's in position to do, and God put him there. And then we have to look at the culmination of this system that we live in. So I'd like to use another verse from the Bible. It's Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12, which says that for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Now, those are just two particular verses that jumps out, and really, if you have sight in both eyes, it can cause you to see what's really going on and put two and two together. But we won't get into that. We need to get into this that everyone don't want to talk about. And another thing that the book exposes, but at the same time, we need to talk about racism. Racism is the needle and the thread of what I'm about to talk about. It's what's fueling, and it's the fuel that really the main ingredient that's in this system of oppression. A racist group, racist society, and some people say they call themselves white supremacists, but it's not just with them. Racism is ingrained and embedded in all races. But it's like if you get angry, there's nothing wrong with getting angry. It's a natural emotion, but at the same time, it's how you utilize that anger and what you do with it that really makes it destructive or productive. Okay. When you really look at the whole world, and then you study history, but what history are you studying? Are you studying history that's been presented to you, or are you trying to study and understand the history that was supposed to be presented? And the reason I say that is because me, and I'm just looking at me, and it's not about me and what I've studied. I've never admired a particular man. I have some people that you all call heroes that I like, Malcolm, Martin, Minister Farrakhan, a lot of different people, but at the same time it was concerning, and the reason being is because of their mindset. And their mindset was, if I could say, I believe were according to the mindset of the origin or the prophets, what the prophets presented, what they brought. Now, I'd like to compare that to the mindset of our current society and the youth in particular, but their mindset is focused on particular people that they consider their heroes, which some of them are basketball players, football players, rappers, people like that. And I'm gonna leave that alone. But I want to reflect on the fallen, the innocent, the ones that was beat, stoned, and killed for no reason. These are the ones that we refer to as the prophets. And some would even go even further and just say that they were messengers that brought a great message that were beat, stoned, and killed for no reason. Three in particular: Malcolm, Martin, and the other one loses my train of thought right there. We won't talk about that. Anyway, the topic we're talking about is systematic oppression. Now, you got to really look at that. You got to look at everything that they control. The conglomerate corporations, the properties, the businesses, schools, hospitals, the sciences, the diseases, economics, social communities, propaganda, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, everything that they control. Now, and you look at how they did that. They, when you look at even the economy, the money, the wealth, they own it. But at the same time, they don't use it. 9 times out of 10, if they create anything, or they build anything, a grocery store, and put it in the middle of the black neighborhood, a hospital in the middle of the black neighborhood, everything, all the businesses that they create, they come up with, these businesses, they borrow money from banks. And the money that's in the banks is whose money? It's our money. Their money there too, but they're borrowing money. They're not using their money. They're borrowing money that's in the bank. And this money that they borrow, they create these businesses and stuff like that. They put in our neighborhoods, and we are the ones that go to the businesses and we support them. We purchase, and that profit goes to them, which that profit is used to pay off the loan that they borrowed to create what they put in our neighborhoods anyway. So in essence, they're borrowing our money. We're going and we're spending our money, and they're using our money that we spend in order to pay back what they borrowed. So they never use their money, they constantly use our money, and they got us blocked out. Well, we can't do that until and unless we come together to create our own economic system that we create so much money that we would have a credit rating similar or equal to theirs, where we can do the same thing that they're doing. And this is what BEEP is about. It's about trying to establish that type of system so that we can create our own and put our own businesses in our own neighborhoods so that we can support ourselves, create jobs for our people, and we won't have to keep going back and forth to them begging for help, begging for them to give us some welfare. Anyway, we gotta look at the psychological perspective of this. Willie Lynch, the systematic oppression that produced, and the only way you can really understand that, you have to read the letter. You have to read it, because some of our people say it's a myth, and at the same time, what I promote is it doesn't matter whether it's a myth or not. It worked. But outside of that, this system of oppression that they've created, the only way that we can get from under the system of oppression, we have to create our own system, and it has to be economic, along with educational system, to get off from under that system. Let that system go so we can support our own system. And the BEEP Foundation is objective is to create a trust factor between the foundation and our people. So it's certain things in place that you have to check out the PowerPoint presentation, which talks about the 12 people on the financial account, no transaction which is not without the majority signatures, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. People-oriented interests, entity owned to benefit the people. You have to get into the PowerPoint presentation to understand the complete business transparency of BEEP, or Pain, Joy, Pain Incorporated. This foundation and Pain, Joy, Pain Incorporated, its sole purpose is to expose and teach about the institutional oppression, and the systematic mistreatment of the people. So it's not just the systematic mistreatment of the people, it's the systematic mistreatment of the people within a social identity group. And this system of oppression is supported and enforced by the society and its institutions, solely based on the person's membership in the social identity group. If you understand what I'm trying to explain. Anyway, for instance, if you can compare BEEP, or the Black Economic Empowerment Plan, to a story about Jesus and the beggar. It was a man who came to Jesus, and he was hungry, I guess, and he asked Jesus for some food. So Jesus gave the man some fish. Same man came back the next day, asked for some food again. Jesus again gave him some fish. The same man came back on the third day. Jesus didn't give him any fish. He took him, and gave the man a fishing pole. So now we look at our people. Our people, and I'm not saying all of our people, but when you look at the streets and the ghettos and the inner cities, you see our people, and out there they just begging, and a lot of times we'll just give them. Some of us. And then this is a constant thing. But at no time are we trying to give them anything to show them or to help them get their own. But the Bible talks about the first shall be last and the last shall be first. And you gotta try to dig into why the first were created first in the first place. The reason. And what happened during all of this. So the first was created first. And if you study the scriptures, the book of Genesis in particular talks about, one particular scripture says, God says, my people shall commit adultery against me. And we already talked about Abraham's seed shall be lost in the land that's not theirs for 400 years, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you tie those two together. My people shall commit adultery against me. If you're married to a woman and you have sex outside of that marriage, then you commit adultery against her. So if God say, worship me and me alone, for I'm a jealous God that will visit the iniquity upon the fathers, even unto the children, up into the fourth and fifth generations of them. That's deep with him about worshiping him and him alone. So now we commit adultery against him. So we're lost in the land that's not our own for 400 years in bondage. You see how all that goes together? And the first ones did this. But it says, after that time, we shall come out of her with great substance. And you got to look at the thread of obedience. That if we can come together and we can follow that rule of obeying him, obedience, put this thing together, then we can come out of her with great substance. Because we can't come out of her with great substance with food stamps and, welfare and NAFTA, whatever it's called. I forgot. Anyway, you talk about the first being created first, but shall be last, and the last first. And who was created first? Who was created last? And the last that was created was allowed to master us. Master the first. That was allowed through the process, commit adultery against God, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to get into all of that. But at the same time, you also got to look at, different materials, the diamond, gold, how the diamond is produced, a bunch of pressure. And so much pressure is on this coal that, so much time and years, and all of a sudden it's a brilliant diamond. And in the process of creating gold and the fire and the purification, process. So the first being created first and allowed to do certain things, but disobeying the things that was presented to them, goes into this process of oppression, systematic oppression that he allowed to create a new people that eventually, God willing, would turn back to the original and obey him and come out of that thing with great substance. Anyway, the Bible talks about the way things were in the beginning, so shall they be in the end. It's many different scriptures in the Bible, and I use that because that's where a lot of us are in America. Okay, now, I'm going to read this poem to you all that I wrote. It's one of the poems in my book. It's called Poetic Moods of Black. Anybody that's familiar with certain scriptures should be able to relate to this, but just here we go. It's called Poetic Moods of Black. It goes, discerning poetry of emotions in all of the original, the bottom rail, the very last of the merciful, the poor in spirit, they that mourn, the meek, the pure in heart, and the peacemakers who seem weak, they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, and are persecuted and reviled from east to west. For they shall see God, be filled, obtain mercy, inherit the earth with the kingdom that's heavenly. They who are killed for the color of their skin, rejoicing and being exceedingly glad for this wind. Four winds breath upon dry bones in a valley. Hope in the mystery Babylon, yes, her prophecy. A system being thus far the greatest of all, has reached its turn and is as of now to fall. The reign that was superior and never to end is crumbling in God's hand for all of our sins. Now the cornerstone that the builders rejected has become the head of the corner, undetected. The very essence of our being, our one-way track, our true revelation to these poetic moods of black. That's just a poem I wrote and tied some scriptures to it. Hope y'all enjoyed it. I think I'm going to post this thing up here so we can all reflect on it ourselves. Okay, back to systematic oppression. It's like we continually, time and time again, keep going back and forth to people begging for something that we've already had within ourselves. We've been begging for justice, freedom, equality. Long story short, we have the ability to take it back on our own. Our own empowerment. Excuse me, y'all. Sorry about that. Anyway, my contribution is Pain, Joy, Pain Incorporated. Also, my book, which donates so many proceeds from the sales to the Beat Foundation. So, if you really look at it, so much of our soul is put into the economic system of America, and we make them richer and richer, while at the same time we enslave ourselves even more than we already are. Because we won't create our own economic system. I'm trying to get us to understand that though we have other organizations that's out there that's trying to create an economy, and my question is, economy for who? I don't understand it, because we have economy. We make $1.3 trillion a year. I guess that's the statistics from last year, but we give 97% of it back to them. So we have nothing. We need to create our own economic system. And until then, we're still just going to have and keep ending up with nothing. With our own economic empowerment system, we can defeat systematic oppression. BEAT is a foundation established by Pain, Joy, Pain Incorporated. It's a nonprofit organization. It's already established. The foundation is laid. We're just looking for the people with the right minds, because like minds attract like minds. So we're looking for those type of people to come together to help establish this board so they can be part of the financial foundation, so that one person, like we've had all this time, won't create wealth for themselves. They can be part of a system that will create wealth for a people. Now, who am I? I'm not your college graduate. I'm not master plumber. I'm not a particular person that's trying to help build their system, because we already discussed their system. Their system is a complete system of oppression. I'm a product of the system and I'm a witness to it, but I'm not a member of their system. I prefer myself to be a witness, I guess. And along with being a witness, it comes responsibility. And that is to expose what's going on with this system. Okay, I'd like to go from there and read another poem, try to make it a little bit more fluid. than the other one. This one is called America's Pride. You all might have read this one on my website. And if you haven't, if you want to get a better read guess, then you can go to my website, paineswebpain.com, which if you're looking at this video, it's probably there already. Anyway, the name of this particular poem is called America's Pride. And it goes, tunnel visions kill, the black lives, they don't matter. In the back, head, heart, reload, a bomb, and slaughter. My hands up, don't shoot, pow, pow, pow. Anyway, America's doom will be racism, injustice, and inequality. Willie Lynch got a gun and some house niggas too. KKK and black skin who sold out their own race. Blood on their hands, making sure of a tight noose. Prime example, Ben Carson, the Trump's spade of ace. The biggest lie of all was the one born before me. After killing all of the Indians, except maybe 3, put drugs in the neighborhoods to start their demonic plan. Set things up completely against the unarmed black man. Black Wall Street, Rosewood, examples of hate. Emmett Till, Trayvon Martin, Walter Scott, hold up, wait. 16th Street Baptist Church, Charleston's church massacre. Babylon's mystery shows of all America's the pride of America. Her biggest honor are the ones behind the badge, but when the tides turn, it's like extra catastrophic. Much more than those who continue to be lynched, yet it's different compared to her motto, how ironic. But an ex-slave got the answer and know that they looked. What's crazy is that he turned it around in his book. If they could, they'd hide it and or sell it with a hook. That's what they do. They are the taker, the damn crook. Don't even matter, see, it's me against the world. I fear none but God. My message for boys and girls. You read this, bear witness, and still don't support it. On in these United Snakes are black people divided. The rest of the world is mad, a product of her fruit. But here, America's seeds still don't have a damn clue. They're killing each other. It's all part of her plan. Guns, diseases, ignorance, black man versus black man. Wickedly wise, sardonic, skillfully to divide and conquer. What's worse is gang banging, stupid mother. Hidden colors 1, 2, and 3. Violence trending worldwide. They can't even tell that they are also America's pride. That's one of my favorite poems. It's not probably the one that is yours. But anyway, if you reflect on this website and you really look at the background and see the faces, the pictures, the mural, those pictures are our fallen. They're the ones who inspired me to come up with the Beat Foundation. Because if we don't do anything, if we don't do something, then it's our continued way of letting them down. They've been killing us for 400 years plus. And the only thing we do is mourn for a time, and then we continue the process of supporting them or submitting to their system. Most of our people have lost common sense. And I say that because of what we claim we believe in and our actions that's produced from this system. It really hurts. But at the same time, it's like, what are you going to do? Assalamu alaikum.